Wait, just give 1 second. Okay, so we're gonna start off with revising. We're already done with clauses, we're done with relative pronouns, so we're just gonna go through them again. We're gonna discuss sentences, and then we'll move on to our assignment and test today, right? I'm gonna
Oh,
share my
okay.
screen for a second. Okay, so first of all, we're going to start off with sentences. Now we have three types of sentences here, right? Simple, compound, and complex. Now, how do you differentiate these three sentences from one another? Now, simple sentences usually only contain subject and one verb, only one verb that is related to the subject in the sentence, right? Now, examples of simple sentences could be, let's imagine this sentence, the cat purred. Now, what is the subject in the sentence?
The first sentence
No, the second sentence.
or the second sentence. So what's the question?
What would be the subject in the sentence? What's the main subject in the sentence?
The cat.
Exactly. And what's the verb?
Bird.
Yes. So sentences which only have one verb in relation to the main subject are usually called simple sentences, right? Now, the second type is we have compound sentences. Now, we've already done clauses, right? So compound
Yes.
sentences is when you have two main clause in the same sentence. There's two main clause and there's a connective joining those two main clauses, right? We've done examples of these in our previous assignments too. Now, the two main clauses, for example, let's say in this, the first sentence, I like bananas and I like grapes. What would be the two main clauses in this?
Um, I like bananas and I like grape. The two main clauses.
Yeah,
Mm, the bananas and the grapes.
it's this would be one clause. I like
Yes,
bananas.
I like bananas, and then that should be the other clause, and
Yes,
like grapes.
I like grapes. Now these are the two main clauses, and this is a connective joining these two clauses, right? Now, how do we know these both are two separate main clauses and not subordinate clause? Because both of them make sense on their own, right? I like
Yes.
bananas and I like grapes. Both of make sense on their own and they're not dependent on each other, which is why we can say that both of these are main clauses. Now, for the second sentence, what would be the two main clauses for the second sentence?
The main clause, you mean?
Yeah.
He waited for the train.
Yeah, and what would be the other main clause?
The train was late.
Exactly. And the word but will be the connective join these two clauses. Okay, so now the third type of sentence, which is complex sentence, also uses clauses, but instead of having two separate main clauses in this sentence, there's usually a main clause, then a connective, and a subordinate clause, right? There's a main clause and a subordinate clause. Now, when it comes to clauses, we've already done clauses, but we'll just have a quick revision. Now, the two types of clauses, main clause and subordinate clause. What are the ways that you can differentiate both of them? The two
In main
bullet points I
clause,
told you. Yeah.
in main clause, there's subject, and main clause makes sense on its own. On its
Yes.
own.
And what else is there with the subject in the main clause?
There is also embedded clause.
No, no, that's embedded clause is part of subordinate clause, right? But my
Yes,
point
it's
is
part
the
of
main
subordinate
clause,
clause.
it has a subject and an object. It's not just a subject, right? We have a subject and an object. Do you get this
Okay.
point, Iman?
Yes.
And it makes sense on its own. Now, when it comes to subordinate clause, what's there in subordinate clause along with the subject?
Verbs.
Exactly. So subordinate clauses are made of subject and the verb. And what is the second bullet point for the subordinate
It
clause?
does not make sense on cannot make sense on its own.
Exactly. And that is how we differentiate between the main clause and the subordinate clause. Now, when it comes to subordinate clause, that's when we have two other types of clauses. Now, both of these type of clauses are part of subordinate clause, right? Now,
Yes.
subordinate clause can come before the main clause, it can come after the main clause, but at time it can also come in between the main clause, right? Now, in times when it comes in between the main clause, that's when we call that an embedded clause.
Embedded clause.
Exactly. It's used in the middle of another clause. Now, relative clause is also a type of subordinate clause, and relative clause can also come before a main clause, after a main clause, and it can also be an embedded clause. It can also be in between another clause. Now, what exactly is a relative clause? It gives extra information about the main noun, right? It describes, it gives extra information about the noun, and it usually uses relative pronoun. It always starts from a relative pronoun. Now, what are the three most commonly used relative pronouns?
Who, which, and that.
Yes. Now we're just going to go through some example for complex sentences. Now in this sentence, what is the what would be the main clause? The first sentence.
I love roast potatoes.
Exactly. And the subordinate clause.
Although my mom prefers them mashed.
Over here, the main connective is the word although.
Although.
What about the second sentence? What would be the subordinate clause in the second sentence?
The main clause.
Mhm.
Um,
Subordinate.
the big dog. Oh, the subordinate clause.
Yeah.
Um, whenever I knocked on the door, and whenever
Exactly.
should be the connective verb.
And this the big dog part will automatically become the main clause. Okay, so this was just a quick revision of what we've done throughout this week, right? We've done sentences, we've done clauses. What are the two main types of clauses?
The main clause and the subordinate clause.
And what are the three types of sentences?
The complex and
Yeah,
the
we have
verb,
three
I
types.
think.
Three types of sentences. We have complex, compound.
Compound and complex. And simple.
Yes, exactly. Simple, compound, complex. Now, how do we differentiate from these from one another? What's the difference between compound sentence and complex sentence?
Compound sentence. Compound sentence includes main clause plus connective.
Yeah,
The word that is connective, like whenever, although, and then there's also main clause.
exactly. And for complex sentences,
Um, it's the same thing, but it's the subordinate clause, like main
yes.
clause plus connective plus subordinate clause.
Okay, great. So now, did you get the assignment that I sent you? Assignment 4. Have you done it yet?
The assignment,
Yeah,
which
the
one?
assignment I sent on the WhatsApp chat. Assignment 4, the relative pronouns one.
Let me check.
If you haven't done that yet, that's completely okay. You can have 10 minutes and just go through that, do that so that we can discuss it right now if there's any mistakes.
No, I have not done it.
Um, just do it right now. I'm giving you 5 minutes. I think it's more than enough. And
It
then we'll
says
discuss
highlight
it.
the relative pronouns.
Yes. Um, okay, what I want you to do is that highlight the relative pronouns and underline the subordinate clauses with it. Okay.
Okay. Um, in the third sentence, it
Yeah.
says, I have got a book with that slash which you might like.
Wait, let me just open the assignment once. Okay, you can just assume, just delete the word that and just assume that's only which.
No, wait, there's a slash.
Wait, let me just, okay, wait, I'll resend you the one that's, okay, so I fixed the assignment. Let me just resend you the final version of the assignment. I sent it to you on the Zoom chat.
Okay, yes, I see it.
I don't think there's anything else that we need to discuss in the assignment, so I'm just going to send you your test. You're going to have a total of 4 minutes to do that, right? It's a very short test. All you have to do is just highlight the relative pronouns.
Okay.
Let me know when you got it.
Yes.
So let me know when you open it and then your time starts.
I just opened it.
Okay. You have 3 to 4 minutes and then let me know when you're done.
So I only have to highlight the relative pronouns, nothing
Yeah,
else.
that's all.
Okay.
Okay, so now that we're done with the test, we're done with all of our assignments, we're formally done with 2 parts of our syllabus, 2 topics, sentences and clauses, right? So now we'll be moving on to commas and how they're used in different situations. Now, before we start commas, what I want you to do is that I just want to discuss your paper pattern with you. I'm just going to share my screen for a short while. Okay, so in your first question, the paper, the comma question, you have to define what kind of comma is being used, right? Now over here, when it says, for example, do they expect you to make a sentence of your own using the same comma?
No, they tell us like we have to write what kind of comma is being used, and we have to like give an example that what kind of comma is being used in the sentence.
So basically, for example, let's imagine that over here, the comma being used is the one used in apposition, right? Apposition. So then in, for example, you're gonna use the comma that are used in apposition to make your own sentence, right? To give it as an example.
Yes.
Okay, great. So not only should you know how to identify which comma is being used where, you should also know how to make sentences using the same comma, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now, what we're going to do is the first use of comma that we will be doing today is to create a phrase in apposition. Now, to understand that, first you need to learn what exactly is apposition. Now, apposition is when two noun phrases are used next to each other in a clause, right? So there has to be two separate noun phrases that are being used right next to each other. And they both have to be referring to the same person or the same thing, right? Now, for example, if we look at this example, Daniel, the youngest child, is very musical. Now, both Daniel, now I've used red for the first noun phrase, and the other bold one is the second noun phrase. Now, both of these are separate noun phrases, right? They both contain one noun, right?
Yes.
What's the noun in this phrase, the youngest child?
It's the child.
Exactly. So they both are noun phrases and they both are right next to each other. There's no connective between them. There's nothing between them. They're just right next to each other and they're only separated by a comma. Now, the second most important thing to remember to know whether it's an apposition or not is whether the second noun phrase or even the first noun phrase, they both have to be talking about the same person or the same thing. They have to be related to one another. For example, over here, when we say Daniel, the youngest child, by their youngest child, they mean Daniel, right?
Yes.
Exactly. And the order does not matter here. It's not, there's no specific order to what noun phrase has to come first, what noun phrase has to come second. So it can be vice versa too. For example, in the third example, we can see their youngest child, Daniel, is very musical. So even though the orders are reversed, it does not matter. The sequence of the noun phrases does not matter. The only thing that matters is that both noun phrases have to be referring to the same person or the same thing, right? Now, this this situation, this scenario, when there are two noun phrases right next to each other, is called apposition. And when both of those noun phrases are referring to the same person or thing. Now, when exactly are commas used in apposition? It's when both of these noun phrases are separated by each other, right? So they're separated using commas, and when they're separating each other, it's necessary that the second noun phrase has to be in reference to the first. It has to be giving extra information about the first noun phrase,
I
right?
have a question.
Yeah.
What exactly is the apposition?
Okay, so apposition is basically when we have two noun phrases that are next to each other. Okay, so this, for example, this highlighted part is would be apposition in a sentence. Okay, this scenario that happens, uh, this requirement that happens for this comma to take place is basically called apposition. Do you understand what I'm saying? This scenario when there are two noun phrases right next to each other would be called apposition. For example, in this sentence, you will say that this part is the apposition found in this sentence. Do you understand now?
I do understand, but I have another question.
Yeah.
If in the first sentence, the living room, the
Hmm.
biggest room in the house, looks out to a beautiful garden, if we remove the biggest room in the house, does it still look like a position comma?
No, it won't, because if the, for example, if this second noun phrase, the biggest room in the house, is anywhere else in the sentence, right? Maybe it's at the end of the sentence or it's in the middle of the sentence, but it's far away from this noun phrase, then it won't count because these both have to be right next to each other. Okay? They have to be
Okay.
right next to each other. They always have to be right next to each other. They will be separated by a comma. And it always has to be in relation to one another. For example, if this is the noun phrase, it has to be talking about the noun phrase that came before it. Is your confusion clear now? Is there any other question?
Um, no.
Okay, uh, so basically both noun phrases are next to each other. The second one has to be giving extra information. Now, for example, let's say that the second noun phrase, if we're talking about two different people, right? Consider a scenario where we're talking about two different people, for example, Ali and Daniel. Now, in that scenario, we won't be able to have an apposition. We won't be able to have two noun phrases that are right next to each other, because for those two noun phrases to be right next to each other, they have to be talking about the same person, right? So then the sentences will be separate. They'll have to be separate because they're giving information about two separate people. So it will be, my brother Ali is a police officer, full stop, and my brother Daniel is still in school. Or they can, or by using a connective, they can make a compound sentence. My brother Ali is a police officer, and my brother Daniel is still in school, right? But since they're talking about two separate brothers in this scenario, they're referring to two separate people. They will not be
Teacher, I have
creating an
uh,
apposition.
hello, teacher.
Yeah.
I think your screen is stuck.
Wait, is it better now? I wasn't moving my mouse or anything.
Okay, because I couldn't see the sentence you were reading.
Oh, okay, no, the sentence is something that just came up right now. It's not in the Word document.
Okay.
Okay. So, but do you understand the main concept of commas, how
Yes.
they're being used in apposition? Okay, great. Now,
Yes.
just go through these example ones. For example, the living room, the biggest room in the house, looks out on a beautiful garden. So these are the two noun phrases, right? And this phrase is obviously referring to the first noun phrase. When they say the biggest room in the house, they mean the living room, right? They're adding extra information about the first noun phrase. Now, for example, if you look back to your exam, the very first question here, dedicated to the goddess Athena, protector of Athens. The marble panels adorning the sacred temple of Parthenon were removed in 1801. Now, what exactly, what kind of comma is being used here?
The apposition,
Yes,
comma.
the comma is used to make phrase in apposition. Now, what would be the two main noun phrases here?
It's like the dedicated to the goddess of Athena,
Yeah,
protector of Athens.
exactly. So the first noun phrase will be the to the goddess of Athena, and the second noun phrase would be protector of Athens. Now, since they also require you to make sentences using the same type of comma on your own, what your homework assignment will be, or actually we can do it right now in class so that if there's any mistake, I can fix it for you right now. Take 10
Okay.
minutes, right? And think of sentences that you can make on your own using this kind of comma. And I want you to come up with at least 6 sentences. Okay?
I have to make on my own.
Yes, on your own using this comma.
Um, okay.
Okay? I'll send you this file too right now so that you have something to refer to if there's any confusion or anything. Take your time, make sure you think about it, make sure the comma is being used in the right place, it's being used correctly, and then you can send me, make the sentence on the Word document, and then you can send me the Word document, right?
Do I have a question.
Yeah.
Do I have to like write the apposition part in other color
No,
or
no, no, you don't need to do that. You can just make a normal sentence. There's no need to bold anything or italicize anything.
okay.
Okay? I'll send you the notes that I just used so that if there's any confusion or anything, you can just refer back to that.
I'm gonna do it on Word.
Yes, on Word.